Imagine waking up one morning, ready to head out for work, only to find a car deliberately blocking your driveway. Not just any car, but the shiny silver SUV belonging to the self-proclaimed queen of our neighborhood HOA. Her name was Karen, and she wore the title with pride. To her, every fence post, every lawn decoration, even the shade of your mailbox, fell under her divine jurisdiction. But that morning, when I saw her car stretched across my driveway like a barricade, I knew we'd crossed into new territory. I walked out to the curb, coffee mug still in hand, and stared at it. She wasn't parked partially in the way. Her vehicle was angled diagonally, ensuring I couldn't back out even if I tried. My first thought was that she made a mistake. Maybe she had a guest over. Maybe she didn't notice. But deep down, I already knew the truth. This wasn't an accident. This was a move, a power play. Sure enough, Karen appeared moments later, strutting out of her house in her oversized sunglasses and HOA clipboard tucked under her arm. She didn't apologize. Instead, she smiled smugly and said, "Maybe now you'll attend the HOA meetings like the rest of us." That's when it hit me. She wasn't just blocking my car. She was trying to control me. See, I wasn't part of her HOA. My house sat on land technically outside their reach, grandfathered in before the neighborhood association ever formed. And Karen hated that. She hated that she couldn't find me for not edging my lawn the HOA-approved way or force me to swap my mailbox for one of their uniform, regulationized versions. She had been needling me for months, leaving snide notes, making veiled threats, and now physically blocking my ability to leave my own property. I called her out on it right there in the driveway. "Move your car, Karen. I've got somewhere to be." She tilted her head like I was the unreasonable one. "Not until you agree to join the HOA. Everyone else contributes. Why should you be exempt?" That was the spark. That single sentence shifted everything. What she didn't realize was that by blocking my driveway, she had set into motion a chain of events that would end with me taking something far more valuable from her than a little patch of concrete. She thought she had the upper hand. She had no idea I was about to turn the tables in a way she could never recover from. Karen finally moved her SUV after I threatened to call a tow truck, but not before giving me one last smirk. It was the kind of smug grin that said she believed she'd won, even though she was the one in the wrong. I went to work, but the incident stuck in my mind all day. By the time I got home, she had doubled down. She taped an official HOA notice to my door. The paper wasn't even legal. It was just a piece of printer paper with the HOA logo at the top and a list of infractions. She claimed I'd committed grass slightly too long, trash cans visible from the street, and my personal favorite, lack of community spirit. That night, I started digging into Karen's background. If she wanted to play games, I needed to understand my opponent. And the deeper I looked, the more I realized just how fragile her little empire really was. See, Karen wasn't just the HOA president. She was also living way beyond her means. Her flashy SUV, her remodeled kitchen, the backyard pool that seemed to get a new upgrade every year, it was all financed. The house she lorded over the neighborhood from wasn't even fully hers. Public records revealed a fat mortgage balance that she had been struggling to keep up with. She had refinanced twice already, pulling out equity each time to fund her queen of the HOA lifestyle. And here's the kicker, because of her constant overspending, she was only barely current on payments. One hiccup in her finances, one unexpected bill, and the bank would be knocking at her door. When I found that out, something clicked. Blocking my driveway had been the last straw. But this discovery gave me the leverage I needed. I didn't want revenge just for the inconvenience. No, I wanted to dismantle the power she thought she had over me. The opportunity came quicker than I expected. Just a week later, I saw her SUV parked in my driveway again, this time late at night. It was like she thought she could bully me into joining her HOA through persistence. But instead of blowing up at her, I stayed calm, calculating. I realized then that her car wasn't just her transportation. It was also still under a loan. And if she thought she could weaponize her property against me, maybe it was time to use her own debts against her. The plan forming in my head wasn't just about teaching Karen a lesson. It was about hitting her where it hurt most. Her ego was tied to her possessions, and I was about to strip her of both in one brutal move. The next morning, I walked outside and sure enough, Karen's SUV was still blocking my driveway. This time, I didn't bother asking her to move it. Instead, I pulled out my phone and made a call. Not to the police, not to a tow company. No, I called the bank that still technically owned her vehicle. See, the records showed she had financed it, and she was behind on payments. That car wasn't really hers. It was collateral, and the bank had every right to take it back. I explained to the repo department what was happening. At first, they seemed skeptical, but when I gave them the VIN, easy to read through the windshield, they perked up. "Sir, are you saying this vehicle is blocking your private property?" the rep asked. I smiled. "Yes, and the owner has repeatedly refused to move it." That was all they needed to hear. They confirmed her loan was delinquent, and a tow truck was dispatched that same day. When the rumble of the truck echoed down our street, I watched from my porch as two men hopped out, clipped the SUV to the rig, and began hauling it up. Karen came storming out in her bathrobe, hair wild, screaming like they were stealing her child. "That's my car. You can't take it," she shrieked. The repo man calmly handed her the paperwork. "Ma'am, you're behind on payments. This vehicle belongs to the bank until you're current." The look on her face was priceless. Her perfect image, her symbol of authority, gone in a matter of minutes. She turned to me, eyes blazing. "You did this. You called them." I didn't deny it. I just took a sip of my coffee and said, "Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like when someone takes something that doesn't belong to them." For the first time, Karen was speechless. The SUV disappeared down the street, leaving her standing in the middle of her driveway, barefoot and humiliated. Neighbors peeked through their blinds, some even stepping outside to watch the spectacle. The queen of the HOA, stripped of her throne in broad daylight. But I wasn't done because as much as losing her car hurt, I knew there was something else that would hurt more. Karen still had that massive mortgage hanging over her head. And the bank wasn't exactly patient with serial refinancers who missed payments. She had crossed the wrong neighbor, and I wasn't about to let her forget it. Karen tried to recover after the repo, but her swagger was gone. She started walking to the HOA meetings instead of driving. And for a while, she kept her head down. But Karen wasn't the type to stay quiet for long. Within a month, she was back at it, dropping official notices in my mailbox, warning me about weeds that didn't exist and demanding once again that I do the right thing and join the HOA. It was laughable. She had lost her car, yet she was still clinging to the illusion of control. That's when I decided to finish what I started. Remember that massive mortgage I found out about? Well, turns out Karen was months behind. Not just on her car loan, but on her house payments, too. Public records showed foreclosure warnings already piling up. All it would take was the right nudge for the whole thing to collapse. So, I started making calls. I contacted the bank handling her mortgage, posing as a concerned neighbor. I told them about her reckless spending, her constant harassment of other residents, and the fact that she was funneling HOA funds into community improvements that suspiciously always benefited her own property. Whether they believed every detail or not, it raised red flags. And when I learned she had taken out a home equity line of credit she couldn't possibly repay, I gave the bank copies of the public documents I had dug up. It was like stacking dominoes. Within weeks, foreclosure proceedings were underway. Karen panicked, tried to rally the HOA to her defense, but the neighbors she had bullied for years weren't interested in helping. They watched in silence as the woman who once lorded over them started to unravel. The final blow came on a Saturday morning. A moving truck pulled up to Karen's house, not filled with furniture going in, but with her belongings being carried out. She stood on the lawn, barking orders, trying to save face. But everyone knew the truth. The bank had reclaimed her home, just like they had with her SUV. As I stood on my porch, sipping coffee, Karen caught my eye. For once, there was no smug grin, no clipboard in hand, just defeat. She had tried to control me by blocking my driveway. In the end, I had sold her car back to the bank and watched her lose the very house she thought made her untouchable. Poetic justice, delivered one payment slip at a time. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more wild HOA and Karen tales, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like if you enjoyed the revenge, and let me know in the comments what you would have done in my place. Your support helps me bring you even more stories just like this one.